फोन नंबर आपको भेज
मेरे को
देती हूँ।
भेज दो प्लीज,
मैंने उससे मेल पे कनेक्ट किया है।
हाँ मेरे को
ठीक है।
फोन नंबर भेज. Okay. Recording. Also, yes, thank you, Mariam. Thank you for being here. You're such a gorgeous woman. I so
Thank
glad to have
you.
you
So are
here.
you.
And I'm so grateful that you're here to share your magic in the world. So
Thank you.
thank you for saying yes. And I would let you start your journey from your childhood, where you, as your background is from Iran, as we were
Yeah.
talking. So could you share a little more, put a highlight on what your background has been, how you have been magical, and I see all the magical lights around you already behind. And so please share your magical gifts with us.
Sure. Thank you. I'd like to thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to talking with you a little further. I'm, as you know, from Iran and was born there, and for about 13 years, up to 13 years, lived there. I always knew that I always was drawn to things that seemed magical and out of the ordinary, and just was always really fascinated by that. Although, I kind of kept it to myself. Just, it's not something that you talk about, but I was really fascinated. I always read books on people who had these abilities, who seemed to do all kinds of things that nobody else could do. So it was always an interest. And with my cousins, we didn't have a Ouija board, but we'd like make a sort of make believe Ouija board on our own, and we'd like play around with it. And, we'd get interesting things happening, except that I always thought that it's my cousin who's doing it. I'd like get upset at her, like, stop moving that. And so we'd go back and forth. Later on, we realized that neither one of us did it, but it
Wow.
just, like we made things happen without physically doing anything. But, those kinds of things that, I would just be fascinated by. And so that a revolution took place, and things took a turn for a lot more serious. And, you kind of like push everything out of your mind, trying to make sense out of the new change that's taken place. And until things got kind of unpleasant for my family on the mother's side. I had cousins who were teenagers and rebellious and all that. And so, I lost quite a few cousins.
Wow.
And that really made me very depressed. I mean, depressed in terms of like very anxious, very traumatized by what was happening, because they weren't that much older than me, and they were all killed. So, I was afraid. Luckily, we left. We were able to leave. And
Were you aware of them? Were you aware of those cousins? Were you aware of those energies? What was that? What was that anxiousness, if I may ask?
Well, the energy at the time, everything, I shut down everything. I mean, even not that I was aware of it, but I just shut everything down. I was afraid because, I figured, okay, maybe they'll come and take me too. I saw some of them being carried away. So it's like, oh my goodness. So I just was just very fearful and just wanted to leave. I'm like, oh God, just let me leave. Just let me leave.
So did you
So
not have your magic? Like, did you not like, were you never thought about the magic at that point of time in your world? Like,
no, my magic just left. I mean, everything, I just completely shut down. Everything shut down for years until, years later, I'm feeling all kinds of funny little things, but I wasn't paying attention to my intuition, my little voice inside. And I was kind of like, I had blindfolds on when I was in college, just following this path. And the only different thing that I ended up doing was, instead of really pursuing medicine, I decided I really don't want to go to medicine unless I do surgery, and I didn't want to do that. And so I had to like break it to my dad that I wanted to just not go there. And I picked art therapy, which was unusual for like if you knew my family, it would be you would understand. They're like,
Your family's what, medical background?
no, they're just very like the traditional,
Uh-huh.
either engineering, medicine,
Ah,
law, that kind of thing. I mean, it's encouraged culturally, as you know, because you have similar.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so, so I'm like, yeah, and art therapy sort of like was an accidental thing. I was looking for something through a catalog. I'm like, oh my God, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
So it was my first permission to kind of get artistic and just bring out creativity, which I'd always liked.
Mhm.
And then, I became an art therapist. I practiced for quite a number of years. And
So what do you mean when you say art therapist? What does an art therapist mean?
an art therapist is a psychotherapist who uses materials and mediums to communicate with the clients.
Mhm.
You make it available to the clients and basically watch their process. Sometimes you give a directive, specific thing that they do. Sometimes you just make these available and have them engage. And everything that takes place is a conversation. You watch that, the way they approach the materials, what they do, the pressure they put on the lines, no pressure, those kinds of things. You watch everything, and that's very telling. Um, so anyway, I was laid off when I was working for the government and the budgets were cut. So a lot of people got laid off, including myself. Big dent to my ego at the time. And so I actually partnered up with a friend of mine. She had the idea of doing jewelry together because she had seen me make some. And she's like, this is fun, let's do that. She's very artistic. So we did that for about 6 years. Had a lot of fun doing it, except, I started getting progressively unhappy and, sort of like, okay, this is really not what I kind of thought I was going to go. The whisperings in my soul were telling me, okay, maybe it's time. So the main thing was that I want to emphasize is I was very usually I considered having a normal chat with somebody, telling them how I feel, like a confrontation, like I
Mhm.
just was shying away from it. I was afraid to upset anybody, those kinds of things. I just was very kind of kept it to myself. But because of that, I became very, very unhappy, and it just crushed me. It was so bad that I wasn't able to do anything. So finally, one day, something like, okay, if you don't talk to your partner, how's she going to know this is what you think? She doesn't know you're like that. And it's not fair either way. And it's just, if you're friends, you'll be able to talk. So I hogged myself up to bring about the subject and basically just say, I really can't go on. And that was the first time that I really felt very empowered. I
Wow.
walked
So
away from
even the
that
courage
meeting.
to talk about yourself gave you that
It
empowerment.
was the
And when you,
first time, I'm like, no, I'm saying how I feel, and this is my action. I took a step, and it felt really good, and I felt empowered. And all of a sudden, something kind of snapped or was put in place, whichever way you want to call it. It was some kind of an awakening just happened, and then I felt like magic returned.
wow. It's like when you start being you, the magic returns and the magic,
Absolutely.
right? Wow.
And something I joke about with your sister. She knows I'm a diehard Harry Potter fan,
Uh-huh.
and now I know what it is about, because my whole purpose is to help people see the Harry inside of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
I think
we all have gifts. We all have something that we offer the world. So I
wow.
love to help people see it.
That's amazing. That's so amazing, and it's like such an empowering thing, Mariam, that, empowering us, seeing others getting empowered, the joy
Yes,
it gets you is like
it's wonderful.
amazing. And that's this platform of Be the Change where I really, really have this whole thing of inviting everybody. Hello, something special. Come share with me. Come on, share with me and let's share it with the
That's
world.
fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm so, so grateful. And as your journey was going through, so I mean, you started your magical journey of like So did you start listening? Did you start to the whispers? Or was it like, what was happening? I mean, you do these paintings, magical paintings. And can you tell us more about that and how?
Yes. So when this happened, all of a sudden, I just realized universe had been trying to talk to me all this time, and I wasn't aware enough to notice any of it. So um, all of a sudden, synchronicities happen when you suddenly notice things. Like a series of synchronistic things took place. I attended a class. I met this special person who brought me to a group which I refer to as Hogwarts. Is my magical group.
I like all your names of Harry Potter. Like, really good enough.
It's definitely Hogwarts to me. Even the group knows I call them Hogwarts. And it was just like I couldn't believe. I swear I couldn't believe I had stumbled upon this group. So I'm like, this is the stuff I read about all this time in my life. I mean, I had to like keep pinching myself, like, really? I'm part of this group? Oh my gosh. Like you can see I wasn't confident enough. But the person who was leading the group at that time, I mean, he's left since, but he is the one who had started it. And when I attended, I thought I was doing a meditation class. I'm like, oh, I wanted to start meditation. I don't know how to do it and whatever. So I kind of like invited myself over to the group. And he just looks at me and he says, you found us.
Wow.
What? So it was just wonderful. And I've been going ever since. This year would be 9 years that I'm with this beautiful group. I'm at Hogwarts. And so the purpose was, they encourage you to sort of like discover gifts. That's the whole group. Like, you pay attention to what's happening, do meditations, and all of a sudden, I meditations. I like one day I heard Saint Germain. I had never known who that is, what that is, like I didn't have any reference to anything they were saying. And I started like, like experiencing things in my meditation. So I got all encouraged and excited. And so I realized, oh my goodness, I do have some gifts. And then the healing came about, like literally Vandana, actually, she's the one who sent me that link. I owe her that because she sent me this link one night and saying, I just watched this thing. I laughed for like a whole hour. I was thinking about you and you might find this interesting. And I'm thinking, oh, that's a good thing. She's thinking about me when she's laughing. That's a positive right there. So I watched that the next morning and I was like, oh my gosh, this just connects. And before I knew it, I signed up for the training.
Wow.
And I've been doing that ever since. I love it. And I love the coaching that also came my way. I mean, that knocked on my door. And so about a year and a half ago, I started hearing, because I had done some of these paintings for myself. I had taken a class with a bunch of people just for my own, like therapeutic relaxation, and a couple of times when I did some coaching with a few people, I kind of gifted them with a little painting and all that at the end. But I had never considered, these were mine. I didn't share them with anybody. So I started hearing, make them available. And of course, I jumped right into skepticism, like, oh gosh, like, oh, who's going to want my paintings or whatever. And then I started like getting bombarded by messages every single day. Make these available, we'll tell you what to do. Make these available, we'll tell you what to do. So finally, I'm like, okay, fine. I made a
How did
post.
you trust those whispers? Like, did you not feel that I'm mad, or is it not like how
I
is that?
absolutely did. Absolutely. I'm like, okay, I've cracked, like. So I thought, okay, let me just I made one post just to see what it is. Cause I'm like, okay, fine. They wouldn't leave me alone. So I'm like, I'll just make one post. And they told me, they said, we'll tell you what to do. So just say they're charged, they're channeled, whatever. I said, fine, I'll do whatever to just quiet myself down a bit. And I made a post and immediately I got several people who contacted me. They're like, we're interested. And then it kind of quieted down, for a while. I had a stroke. So I took some time off, and then after that, I started hitting them again. Go back to it. Go back to it. So I did that, and I feel like it's like the power is even stronger now. I don't
Yeah.
know.
You mean after the stroke you had more power?
I
What
think
was
so.
that? What
Like
was that
some,
stroke all
some
about?
things changed. It's not like I didn't die and come back. It's not. It wasn't that kind of a stroke. I mean, I had a carotid artery in my neck that got dissected. I mean, like basically ripped, and so I became debilitated, like most stroke victims do. But luckily, it passed very quickly. I just like stopped being able to speak, and I couldn't feel my body, and obviously, and then I couldn't walk, and so. But I remember just telling when I was at the hospital room finally when all the visitors had left and everything, I was all alone. I'm like, okay, guides, I know I've been asking for a sign, like, but this wasn't exactly what I had in mind.
You mean things never show up the way we're asking them to show
Yeah,
up?
exactly. I'm like, I would very much like to be able to speak again. Thank you very much. Because my plan is to do motivational speaking. That's like the one thing I've always wanted to do, and I've seen myself do it. Like that's like one vision I've had even before I got into this stuff. So I'm like, I'd like to be able to talk.
Wow.
So, I was released relatively quickly, and, I got mobility back and everything. My hand isn't the same anymore, but I feel like it's become kind of special. It's kind of like an antenna now,
Wow.
picks things up.
You
And
sense and then you draw from that same hand and you
yeah, that's the same. It's my dominant hand. So, I have a more elaborate process with the angels.
yeah.
I, I do special, okay, it's like a little ceremonial thing that I set things up. I say a prayer, I meditate and everything, and then I begin, the process. In the meantime, I do that, repeatedly throughout the process. So
So
I
you
love
mean
doing
all the magical creatures got set into your hand through that stroke? I mean, it sounds so like so magical Harry Potter world for me right now. Like, oh, this came from here, that came from here, and things never show up in this reality how we think, and it
that's
sounds weird, right? And being that magical creature, how can you have a stroke in this reality? But
yeah.
that's also gifting you somewhere. That's what I could see.
Definitely. It was, I knew even at that time when I was going through that, I was convinced that this was just a message to me because I had been too dense to pick it up before. So they're like, okay, we're just going to stop you in your tracks. That's it. You go nowhere from here. So I am very grateful that I, don't have any visible signs, and I'm, capable of doing whatever I wanted to do like before.
Mhm.
Um, I'm beyond grateful. I mean, this was just a glitch,
Wow. So do you,
but
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
but it was just sort of like a kind of stop and reboot yourself in the way that you're supposed to. Don't hold yourself back.
Wow.
This was kind of a message that was like, just trust, allow, and go.
Trust, allow, and go. Wow.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. So do you think the people who are bought, I think I saw somebody's message here, Golnas, she says she has one of
Yes.
your painting and it does speak and the energetic. So did you get this feedback from everybody that these?
I actually have had quite a few, and I'm very grateful for this process,
Mhm,
whatever.
mhm. Wow, that's amazing. And have you heard the feedbacks from a lot of people that what is it and how is it that having that painting in their houses, how that's changed and shifted their lives?
They tell me that they can feel the energy in that space. It's very soothing, peaceful, loving energy. Which is what I infuse into it, and so I mean, and some people take it with them. I have a friend who she has two houses. She takes it every
Yeah.
time she goes somewhere. She takes her angel with her. So
Wow. And so
like,
this is apart from your being as an empowering coach and empowering.
yeah, this was something that was more on the periphery that I did, and sort of recently it's taken more of a center stage.
Wow. And has it also like kind of contributed in you in empowering people, the channel and these magical fairies and stuff, and everybody you make, all the angels that you create? Do you talk to them? Do you have an energetic connection with them? What
I
is it?
absolutely do. I have joy guides. I have a dragon. I have yeah,
Wow.
I'm sounding really woo-woo now, but I actually teach a workshop on the wisdom of the unicorns and the dragons, which
Mhm.
is really fun for me to do because I really get to be woo-woo the way I want to be. But the whole and my coaching program helps you dig in and sort of meet your own unicorn and dragon. You know what I
Could
mean?
you
Like
talk about what is
it's not
this?
what it's called, but you know,
Yeah.
sorry.
So, could you talk a little bit on what is unicorns and dragons and what does it do? Like, what is it? For
Right.
people who do not have.
Well, okay, this is just going to sound very strange. There actually are people who actually see, experience unicorns and dragons. But I'm using them because I have a book that, you know, is waiting to be published. The way I refer to them is the symbolic way. You know, what do we all think of unicorn when we hear the word? What do you think of unicorn when you hear it?
I just know an horse with that thing on the thing. That's what I saw because I didn't know what unicorn meant. It. I just
Right.
knew
So how does it, I
special.
mean, like what kind of
Something special.
imagination in
Yeah. So it's
what
a
does
white
it think?
horse with the tail on the head, and it's like that special. That's special. Like
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. That's the word I was looking for. They're unique,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
How many creatures do you see with like horns, you know, sticking? Okay, so the whole concept of the unicorn is we're all unicorns. Each of us has a special gift that only we can offer, right? This
True,
is what you do. You bring that out in people.
true.
And the dragon being the shadow, the thing that's fierce and it's terrifying because we think it's going to harm us. However, if you get to know your dragon, you'll realize you can maybe even ride it. You know, you can become friends with it. You get to know your shadow side and you realize your thought of it was a lot scarier than it itself, right?
Wow, it's
Sometimes
amazing that how you say that you can ride your dragons, and it's
that's
like
right.
you,
That's
you can
right.
ride your fears, and how can and I mean drive even your mind for that matter. Like
Absolutely, because our fears are there to teach us things, you know, and there is a reason sometimes we don't want to face certain things because it's either hurtful or it's, you know, just we're afraid to visit there. But the more we get to know that side, we realize, okay, it's only there because it's trying to teach us a lesson, and then it's not scary anymore. You
wow.
know, there is healing that takes place when we can face those cracks that we have inside of us, you know. We let the
So
light shine
beautiful.
through, right?
Yeah, that's so beautiful how you put it, Mariam, that you've given that whole thing to this unicorn or these all the magical characters are so us. I mean,
Right. We're all
it's
magnetic.
a different perspective. It's like, wow, I'm in my world, like, oh, have we put the magic outside and we think these characters are outside us? Like, I mean, it just shifted something in my world. I'm like,
You
wow.
know, it's
I
like
mean,
we are all Harry. I
yeah,
remember years ago, this is how it all like clicked for me as well. I had this beautiful, I used to work with adolescents before I worked for the government. I worked at this facility with adolescents with, you know, like troubles. And there was this one particular kid, a 14-year-old boy, who was absolutely not into anything. Like he's like, I'm not having it. And he had unfortunately been so institutionalized that he knew what to tell you that you wanted to hear. Super intelligent kid. The only thing he ever cared about was to read. He just loved to read. And so like it was one leverage we could do, like to get him to do something, we'd have to like, you know, doctors or nurses or whoever just would threaten to take his books away and then he'd like cooperate a little bit. So in comes this lovely thing in lovely being in my group, and he's just sitting there staring at me like, hmm. Finally I realized, okay, I have an idea. I brought Harry Potter into the conversation, and he was making fun of me like, "Pff, I don't read that childish stuff. This is ridiculous. I don't read that stuff." I'm like, well, it's okay. It's an idea. I'm reading it. I thought if you read it, we could talk about it, and I can get your perspective on it. It's just in a way like get him to engage with me. Oh my gosh, I wanted him to see Harry inside of himself, because he was so special, but he didn't see it and nobody else saw it. This poor kid had a violent past and he was violent
Wow.
himself. So, anyway, it was the only way that connected us.
Wow. And
Harry connected us.
Harry,
You know what I mean?
did he get, did he receive his being Harry, or was it like,
I mean, he just got so into the story. He would make fun of me like, "Oh, you're so slow. Come on, finish your book. I'm waiting to get it. When are you going to, he became enchanted with the story, and I would like engage him in telling me, so what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Despite of himself, he gave it away. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that was the beauty of the kind of, therapy I had the privilege to do, because it
yeah.
wasn't a traditional talk therapy. So we're all magic, basically. We
Can you
all
say
we're
a little
all
more about
Harry.
this? Really intrigued me, a little more around how Harry is one character and dragons are of yours. Unicorn is the uniqueness we have. What are these angels?
Oh, oh, we all have angels helping us. We have guardian angels,
Uh,
and there are archangels. They're all there to help us. We all have teams,
mhm.
and we're not alone. If we knew that our soul is so much bigger and is so connected, because we are part of that source energy ourselves, and we can always directly
Wow.
speak, to that power and ask the angels to help us further, they will do it. We just have to trust.
Yeah, trust. Trust is a great word. Yeah,
Yes.
I get that totally. And how many of us do trust, and how we have never been taught to trust ourselves, and how
Right. And
knowing.
it's a challenge because, it's not something that's necessarily taught in schools, or, especially the Western world. They're getting into that now more and more with yoga and things like that. But it's not something that we are encouraged to always do, to just trust our own intuition and tap into the heart center, which has a mind of its own, and that's just as valid as your mental mind. And if we can get them to a coherent state, then it's even better. It's I think it's worth the effort to teach that.
Yeah, and what would you say around the body and the earth? So, do you think body and the earth and that whole the oneness thing? How would you put that for us? Oh
This is my
yeah,
baby
baby.
cat saying hello. The oneness with the earth, you mean?
Yeah, with the earth and the body, how it's all coordinated, how that is leads to that whole oneness. Like
Yes,
I always believe that there's no others, everything is me, and
that's true. That's true.
yeah,
And I see Mother Earth as our mother. She is our caretaker, and we unfortunately don't always appreciate her. We are her children, and she's our home. So um, I'm hoping for the day that we give her more reverence than we have been so far.
so,
Yes, and we're all one. She's also an entity by herself. I think of her
that's what
like
I
that.
wanted to talk about more around entities. So, like how people get scared. So, I mean, I find them as my friends. But yeah, so when as long as they're like a beautiful angels, how we perceive them, and how beautifully said that you said that it's us. Everything is us, right? The Harry's us, the powers
Absolutely.
are us, and so is angels. So are those entities, right? They're us. But then people are so happy to receive the entities which are like, which we think will be gifting us. It's like a Santa Claus, right? The rest of the entities, they're like, oh, they're scary.
Right.
So would you like to put some light on that? Like, what you know, because you connect so beautifully with the whole magical world. So, what about the dark energies which people always shed away? What would you like to say away about that?
Personally, although I practice some of this stuff, I don't focus on things that are um, negative necessarily, although I do believe there are dark forces.
Mhm.
But I've always I know it's going to sound a little bit like I'm full of myself, but I'm not saying it in that light. I just honestly, I do prayers of protection, sometimes, but I just feel like as a whole, I'm protected because I'm always calling on my angels. However, there are dark forces, and we have the power, again, like everything else, we have the power to keep them away. If this is not something we want to deal with, and we could do the prayer of protection to have it around us and say anything but other than the highest light can get close. And
Wow.
it works. It's in us. We can
So you
determine.
mean people invite all those demons in their life?
I've met some, not that often.
No, I mean, like, of course, like, I get that, like, I get that, Mariam, that I just see that, when you're being unconscious and you're not being present in your life, you do invite them. Like, but as how beautifully you said that I'm protected, I'm always there protected because you're always present with yourself and, acknowledge yourself. And I love that. And I love that about you. Like, you think I have that too. And I do say that I love myself. I'm my favorite too. And I'm always
Right, right.
protected. So
It's
I,
taken me a very long time to get here, honestly, and I can finally appreciate the fact that I wouldn't change this state for anything else now,
wow.
because it really has been a long road for me to get to a place where I can just own this.
Hmm. So what tools would you give to all the people watching this, that how can they actually bring their gifts out in the world, and any tools, how would you empower them, like any few tools that you would like to give it to them?
I would just some simple things to, first of all, take a little time every day to center themselves, whatever that looks like to them. Some people like to just walk in nature, some like to sit down and write, some like to just meditate in whatever form you're aligned with, to just take some time to center yourself. And the practice of gratitude, it is the most life changing, in my opinion, for any state. I mean, it brings about that inner calm and peace that helps you
Mhm.
become more present and to pay attention to what's happening inside of you, to just being mindful and listening to the whisperings of your soul. Gratitude, I think, is that would be top of my list,
Yeah.
really.
Wow. So a lot of people say that only, special ones can hear them. And as
Yeah.
you said, we all are special and we all are
Yes.
unique. We all can. So would you give anything that for people to start acknowledging that they too are special? Like, what would you like to say for that? How to, I mean, any tools to remind yourself each day that you are special?
To think about the things that they've enjoyed doing so far and the things that they are good at, um, that they've been told to good at, that they're good at, to write those down as a list, and every day say it like an affirmation. Oh, look at me, I can do this, I can do that. And like have a conversation with themselves in the mirror. It's mirror work is really interesting. It's kind of awkward, but it
Hmm.
can be very powerful because you really look at yourself, you look into your own eyes, and you really communicate. You shine, you radiate, you're good at this. This is, um, whatever that they are proud of within themselves.
Hmm.
You concentrate on that.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And what else would you like to? How would you like to? And what invite the people in the world to be the change? Like I mean, you went through your depressions, you went through your heart stroke, you went through a lot of stuff to get to your magical powers. How would you simplify for people? And what would you say? And like how to
I would
be?
say, yeah, I would say that it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily take some sort of traumatic thing to take place or some disastrous event to happen for us to suddenly come to our own. If we take time to dig in and to meet ourselves every day, just to like tap into the heart center and try to pay attention to what our body, we can start with the physical body, what our body is trying to tell us, and to really trust that we are on a journey and we each have a purpose for being on this journey, and to trust the guidance that comes to us, to become mindful of people who come into our lives. People are messengers, and maybe something we read, anything, signs are everywhere if you know where to look, right?
Yeah.
So to just become more aware of ourselves and to have the trust that we each have something specific that we decided to come in and contribute to the world, and to allow it to
Mhm.
come forward, you know.
Yeah, but anything you would, I know it's sounds, I've been through that stage and I've been there, done that. And I know when people used to talk this in front of me that, like, they're special and, you're here for special and there's a purpose of your life. And I was like, what's the fucking purpose? Like, how it like, and I would like laugh and I'm like, okay, for me, the purpose is to have fun, period. I am not going to find it out because it's so gruesome to keep finding out what is the purpose rather than being here and enjoying, and I'll waste my time. And that period is keep going on and I do not know what I have. So, and yet at the same time I was asking, what is that purpose? What is it? And honestly, it is actually to be fun and magical and be you.
Right.
um, it's pretty frustrating to just listen when you're not into it. To
Right,
like,
right.
it's very easy for this lady to say that, okay, be you and stuff. How to be you, where to go and find you. So with you, what is your tool to find you?
Well, what would get you out of bed every morning if there was nothing else for you to worry about? What is it that makes your soul sing? If you could do that, what would that be? What would that look like? And work backward.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That made it so simple. There you go, guys. I got you the tool. Now you can't say that it's so frustrating. I wish somebody had said that to me at that point. I was like, everybody just sees it. I mean, come on, be at my state. I don't even get it, like what it is.
Like, be that person you wanted as a kid, you know?
Yeah, that I really acknowledge that. Yeah, what you really wanted to be in as your child. I
Yeah.
definitely, you were magical and you could hear all this, but now after time you're practicing the same, right?
Right.
Wow. So, guys, there is a hint, hint, hint. Go to your childhood. What were you born as? And it's not outside you, correct?
Inside. It's always inside.
Yeah.
Yes.
So these are the ways of, and how to look inside. We're so concentrated with our mind to look outside all the time, Mariam.
That's true. That is something that I think people would do better to find on their own, although they all end in meditation. I would say that's the best way, but there's so many different ways of doing meditation. There is no specific way. I would suggest, I actually have that in my book too. Mindfulness is a really good first step
Hmm.
to just becoming mindful of your presence in this physical setting, like even the way you're sitting in the chair, how it feels, are you balanced, just little things like that, just to pay attention to minute details of your being in that moment.
Hmm.
That helps focusing your mind, and then getting a little more insight. So, like talking to your organs, things like that, to just keep going in. It's a layered thing, just to keep going in. That would be the first suggestion I would have, a mindful practice.
Watching yourself, observing yourself, and talking to yourself. Like,
Absolutely.
like when we used to talk in the childhood, we were like termed, and I remember my son doing it, and I was like, has he become old? Is he mad? Why is he talking to himself? And we would talk like, why are we talking to ourselves? And I would catch myself so many times talking to myself. I'm like, have I lost it? I'm like, what's going on?
I
And
have a friend who jokes with me. She's like, she knows sometimes we go, well, now, not now, that's COVID, but, before we used to like hang out and sometimes go to stores and things like that. And she'd see me all of a sudden start talking to myself like loud. And I had not noticed that. It just was like something. And she always jokes. She's like, oh no, she started again.
thanks.
Calm down, calm down.
So, but to let you guys know it's fine to do that. You're not
Absolutely.
mad.
Now I joke at it. I'm like, since I work, for myself and with my guides, I'm constantly having staff meetings.
I love your staff meetings. I think I have a couple of them too.
I
I
have
think we
staff
all
meetings
have
all
them.
the time.
And I think that's somewhere we are making deep down, we are making ourselves wrong rather than actually acknowledging that there are capacities which are gifting you. Had you not heard them, you would have not been what you are today, right, Mariam? Like,
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people are just waking up more and more.
yeah,
I do
it's
see
like
that,
you're never alone.
right?
Whatever you try, you are never alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What would you like to say around never give up, never give in, never quit, which is the tagline of this talk show?
Oh, your tagline says it all. It's perfect. Just remember why you started it. When you get tired and you get to a point where you feel like you want to give up, just remember why it all started and look back only to see how far you've come.
Wow.
That's it. And it's you owe it to yourself to see it through, see what happens, and enjoy the ride in the process.
Yeah. So, why do you think people give up?
Because it becomes very challenging and very tiresome, and just like a couple of minutes ago you said, they sometimes feel like they're alone.
Yeah,
There's nobody else that understands them. Nobody's like,
yeah.
they're alone in this.
And that's
And
when you said that you have to look back and see like where it started, where did you start it from?
exactly.
Wow, that's
And
so.
don't be afraid to ask for help. Nobody said you had to do this in a vacuum, in a bubble.
So it's like we always like shy of asking. So I wonder your worlds can change. I mean, if you
Yeah,
just
because sometimes you feel like, how when you help somebody, you feel good.
yeah,
Give somebody else the opportunity to feel that helping you,
yeah,
you
wow,
know.
yeah. And how much wrongness we are into that nobody would like to help us. But I guess we all
Yeah,
love to.
we associate that with being strong. Like we see weakness as wanting to help from others. Like we can hack it on our own. We're not good enough or strong enough to do it on our own. But that's actually, to me, it's the opposite. It takes strength to
Wow.
ask for help.
Wow. It takes strength to ask, guys. I love that, Mariam. That wow. Thank you. And would you like to tell everybody what are your programs, where can they connect you, and what kind of programs do you do and empowering coaching?
Sure, sure. I do a kind of coaching that has a spiritual bent, um, not religious, but has a spiritual bent. Again, it's like a journey you take inside. It's I call it insight out, but it's like a soul coaching thing. Like you meet your own soul, you get to know yourself through this program. It's an intensive. It's about a month long. I also have one that's a few weeks longer than that. It includes some of the tools of the coaching, the soul coaching in there. And that's when you get to meet your dragon and get
Wow.
to ride it. So that one is from muggle to magic.
I love the name.
That's that. And I also facilitate reconnective healing, which I really enjoy, and the angel paintings. I have a website that's called The Core Shift, which explains some about the healing and the paintings and my coaching. I also have a YouTube channel under the same name, The Core Shift.
So it will be shared in the chat, guys. Yeah, great.
So
Awesome.
I can be contacted. Actually, I would invite whoever's watching to subscribe to my YouTube channel because that would be great.
Brilliant. Thank you
Uh,
so much. Anything else you would like to say for Be the Change page and invite people to the space?
just remember, we're all magic. We have something to contribute to the world, and you are the most amazing tool to help people empower themselves. Thank you for having this platform. It's
Thank you.
wonderful. I really appreciate that. And you are a beautiful person yourself.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for inviting me today.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your, I mean, so many insights, so much melted, so much difference for me. That was like a way amazing how I have all my life made magic outside me and these angels, and it was so beautiful that Harry is you, and and I can fly my dragons, and
That's
thank
absolutely
you.
true.
That just shifted my world beautifully, and I'm so
Thank you
grateful for
so
you.
much. I'm very honored. I'm very humble.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody who joined us for this show. Hope it kind of melted your world and you are the Harry of your life. And come on, gear up and be show up in the world as you. And that'll be the gift for all of us here. And thank you, my team, Shivangi, Sonali, Umesh, for always having my back. Won't be possible without three of you. Thank you, love you all, and thank you. To see you in future and keep watching. There's a lot of stuff that keeps coming all through the week on this, and I have an 11:11 Insta where you can follow me every morning at Be the Change by Aradhana. And then next Sunday we have a new guest, new sharing and new melting. And let's see what else is possible. All right, guys. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Mariam, again. Bye bye.